What I find very interesting, that 1 in 4 low-income households spend 15% or more of their income on energy bills. This leaves many families having to decide between putting food on the table or paying their power bills. Since 2022, retail electricity costs have increased faster than the rate of inflation. This is why I use this magical little device and would never go a month without it. It is state-of-the-art energy-saving tool that minimizes dirty electricity and environmental impact. This gadget can be effortlessly connected to any regular electrical socket and employs advanced technology to oversee and fine-tune energy usage in your household. By scrutinizing and modifying the electric current, it can notably diminish the quantity of energy consumed by your home appliances and gadgets without impairing their effectiveness or operation, and help support lowering your energy bills. Do your wallet a favor and grab one while it's on sale now for up to 60% off, only at don'twastepower.com before your next pricey power bill comes in. Plus, if you order now, you'll also get a 60-day 100% money-back guarantee and several other bonuses. Once again, that deal is only at don'twastepower.com or click the link in the description. Hi, and welcome to the X22 Report Spotlight. Today we have two guests, Clay Clark and Eric Trump, and I'm going to introduce Clay first. Clay, I want to welcome you to the X22 Report Spotlight, and thank you for joining us.
Dave, I'm honored to be here with you. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Hey, thank you for being here. And our second guest today is Eric Trump, and I am very happy and honored to have him on here. He has his new book out called Under Siege, My Family's Fight to Save Our Nation. And I am very happy to have Eric on the X22 Report Spotlight. Eric, welcome to the Spotlight.
David, great to be back.
Hey, thanks for being here. And might as well just start off with your book here. You wrote this book, and I just wanted to know what motivated you to write the book.
So, Dave, I came up with the title a couple years ago, right? I mean, they were doing everything they could to take out my father, to take out our family, to take out our movement, the MAGA movement. They impeached my father twice. They spied on his campaign. They wrote dirty dossiers. You had the Russia collusion hoax. They weaponized the DOJ. They weaponized the FBI. They raided Mar-a-Lago. They took him off the ballot in Maine. They took him off the ballot in Colorado. They gag ordered him in every jurisdiction in the country. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. They stripped him of all of his accounts while, the Ayatollah and Boko Haram and Al Qaeda and all these other guys stayed on there. I mean, they did everything they could to destroy us. They got rid of our bank accounts. They deplatformed us. Capital One came after us like we were. They literally shut down 300 bank accounts in the middle of the night on our company. I mean, they did everything they could to hurt my father, to break apart his marriage, to break apart our relationships, to break apart our family. I became the most subpoenaed person in American history with 112 subpoenas in that period of time. And so I started thinking about it. I said, listen, all they want to put us under siege. Right? That's what this is. They want to bankrupt us. They want to deprive us of time, of resources. They want to put us in jail. And then they tried to kill my father. They tried to kill him in Butler. They tried to kill him again at the golf course in Palm Beach. Then recently you saw what they did with Charlie Kirk. Yeah. And so this book it's all the inside stories, not only growing up. And by the way, there's a lot of incredibly inspirational aspects of it, but it's how the system lashed out to a family who wanted to come in and save our country, save our nation, save the American flag, save religion, save freedom of speech, the weaponization of government, and everything they tried to do to destroy a family and a movement and people, and how we would not break and how we would not cower, and how we rose tall above all of it, and how we ultimately ended up winning against every unimaginable odd.
It's absolutely amazing how you guys got through all of this, because I think they threw everything in the kitchen sink at you guys. And I mean, because of Charlie Kirk and what we're seeing now, we're seeing a lot of violence starting to be put. I mean, when I'm looking across the country, I'm starting to see like a lot of violence in many different locations. And I see that Cash and Pam Bondi and your father, they're bringing in law enforcement into all these different areas. Do you think with everything that's going on, do you think they're going to escalate the violence as more indictments come down?
Well, you know what, Dave, when the narrative has been lost, resort to violence. I mean, that seems like over the course of history, that's always what they've done. I mean, they've lost the narrative. I mean, we won every swing state, as you know. We won the popular vote, as you know. We won 11 counties in California that had never been won before. We won Miami-Dade County by 11 points. a county that hasn't been won by a Republican in 37 years, right? They've lost the narrative. I mean, the Democrats are polling the lowest they've ever polled at before, and so guess what? They've called you and me and Clay and everybody else. They've called us fascists for years. They've called us sexist. They've used every word in the book, and yet, despite the fact that they're calling us fascists, they're the ones that are dressing up in black and standing on rooftops, kneeling on rooftops and, shooting 31-year-old kids in front of crowds who are, exercising their First Amendment right, but yet they're the ones calling us, quote unquote fascists. It's really, it's rather unbelievable.
What came out of this is that Charlie Kirk, since his assassination, I mean, we've seen his chapters, like they're growing like wildfire. I mean, especially in Oklahoma. Isn't that where you are located, Clay, in Oklahoma?
I'm in Oklahoma, the only state, by the way, where all 77 counties voted for Trump. And I'll just tell you this with Charlie Kirk. I mean, this is a guy, he was actually on the Reawaken America Tour stage 3 times. I had a chance to get to know him. Eric was obviously a close friend of Charlie's. And all I could say is what Charlie Kirk did to awaken so many people to the importance of our Constitution and to just the overall concept of what makes America exceptional. So many people have lost that. They were being indoctrinated on the college campuses. College students are going to college and being taught that capitalism is a bad thing. They're being told that American exceptionalism is a bad thing. And Charlie Kirk unapologetically stood up for the Constitution, for God, for faith, for family. And as we pray for his family and anybody that was deeply affected by the loss of Charlie Kirk, I can tell you the death of Charlie Kirk has filled America's churches. And I'll just briefly give you 2 examples. There's a church I work with right here in Tulsa, Oklahoma called Sheridan.Church. Sheridan.Church. No affiliation to Charlie Kirk. The pastor of Sheridan Church has been on the stage with Charlie Kirk before, and they were friends. But our church was completely filled and continues to be completely filled every Sunday since the assassination of Charlie Kirk. The chapters have been seeing record numbers of people requesting to become members of the Charlie Kirk Foundation and the Turning Point organization. So, and Eric, maybe you've seen this similar results, but all I'm seeing is these churches that I work with directly to help them grow, they are being filled each and every Sunday since the assassination of Charlie Kirk.
Eric, do you think that the country, with everything that happened to your father, with everything, where they came after your family, do you think the country now is more awake than ever before?
No question about it. I mean, I speak about this a lot, but it's the law of unintended consequences. Right? They thought they could imprison him. They thought they could put him in a courtroom. They thought they could deprive him of money. They thought they could have us spend $300-400 million on legal fees, and bankrupt us. They thought they could do it all. They thought they could make our lives so damn uncomfortable that we just throw in the towel and say, it's much better life just to hang out in Mar-a-Lago, or run a nice company, fly around on Trump Force One, and they got it wrong. But beyond that, the unintended consequence was the American people saw through the sham, right? They did not like the mugshot. My father didn't need a mugshot. He's the most recognizable person on planet Earth. Yet they insisted on the mugshot. Why did they want to do that? For embarrassment factor. Congratulations. You know what that did? That pissed off the entire country. When they put my father in a courthouse, they shut down all of downtown New York for literally an 8-week period of time for a $130,000 payment that he didn't even make. You know what that did? That pissed off all of the country, and they realized this whole thing was a sham when they indict him 34 times, right? When, I've never gotten a traffic ticket, and yet I get 112 subpoenas. Guess what that does? That pisses off the entire country. When they find out that Russiagate was a hoax, and the first impeachment was a hoax, and the second impeachment was a hoax, and then they try and take their hero off the ballot in Colorado, and they try and take their hero off the ballot in Maine, and they shut down his Facebook accounts and his Twitter accounts. You know what So it's this law of unintended consequences, and there's no question that my father, between his very, very loud voice and the silly actions and the fact that, you can only cry wolf so many times before people figure out who the hell you are. And they kept on crying wolf, and people in this country did not like it, and they rejected it categorically, hence the reason we won in as spectacular of a fashion as we did. And, and Dave, so much of that is the point of Under Siege.
When you look at like the population of the country, I mean, yes, the Republicans and a lot of independents are on the side of Trump. Do you think the Ds are? I mean, I'm not talking about the far left Ds, the moderate Ds. You think they're starting to wake up now and they're starting to realize what's going on?
I think so many of them have, right? And you can see that in the numbers, right? The Democratic Party is the weakest it's ever been. Second of all, you have this kind of paradox right now. The media, unlike 2016, has really no influence anymore. The stories that they put out there just don't sing like they used to. Before you used to have an NBC or CBS, they'd put out one story and they could just crush you with their power and their weight, and they could spin up an entire narrative. The reality is the media is the most kind of distrusted group in this country now. So you've got the Democratic Party that's faltering, but really their PR arm, which was the mainstream media in this country, is all but useless right now. And then you have independent voices like yours and the Joe Rogans of the world who have massively filled a void. And so there's no question that they are weaker than they've ever been before. First of all, their policies stink. Second of all, they were caught time and time again. Third, people just don't like who these people are. Fourth, they've got no messengers right now because, you tell me who's leading the Democratic Party. They have no leaders. They're wrong on every issue. I mean, they fought like hell against crime in the cities, right? It's like, look at Chicago. Please don't send the National Guard in there to stop the shootings on weekends. Like, congratulations. Like, Republicans are winning that issue by 100%. Same thing with, fentanyl coming across our border. Same with illegal immigration, in this nation. The Democrats aren't on the right side of any of these issues, and it's one of the reasons that I think Republicans are picking up so much ground.
As we approach the midterms, I know they're a year off, but I think the midterms are very important. Yes, the presidential race was very, very important, but I think this time around, I think the midterms are going to be very, very important, especially for your father to move forward with getting certain laws passed, because there's a lot of rhinos in there. We know there's a lot a lot of Ds that are just crazy, like Jasmine Crockett and all the rest. I think the midterms are going to be very important. What do you think about that?
I'd say my one fair warning, and I can't tell you how many times I've heard it in my kind of, quote unquote political career, where people have come up to me and, Eric, my guy's not on the ballot. They're talking about my father. My guy's not on the ballot, so I'm not going to go out and vote. And I go, please, please, please don't think that way. Please, I beg you not to think that way. Like, you need to get out. I don't care that Donald Trump's not on the ballot. And I know he's your guy. And I know he's the only one that's excited you about politics and in your entire adult, life. But you have to get out there and vote, because without your vote, it's all meaningless. He's not able to accomplish all the things that he could accomplish so get out there and vote. And I say that to the entire audience because, I know your audience is very, keyed into kind of the political topics, but people have to get out there and they have to vote. You can't just sit at home because, the guy you love is sitting behind, the desk in the Oval Office. That does not work, right? You're making him less effective by doing that. And so, people have to move out and get to the polls and vote. And, I think we're in a great spot. I really do.
Yeah, I think people are starting to learn that we just can't sit back anymore and just let whoever is running the government run the government. I think we've done that for a long time, and look what happened. We let the kids, move into D.C. They're running everything, destroying everything, and now the adults have to step up and say, "Okay, kids, enough is enough." I mean, I think whoever has kids, they understand. Like, you let them go a little bit, you let them do certain things, and then you finally say, "Enough is enough," and then the adult steps in. Clay, you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I have. Well, I have a lot of thoughts. I have a big stack of stuff here. And Eric, if you'll let me get into my stack of stuff real quick here. First off, I met Dr. Peter Navarro through the Reawaken tour. And Dr. Navarro, he said, "Clay, I love you, man, because you operate in Trump time." And I said, "What does that mean?" He said, Clay, as working directly with Donald J. Trump, the whole Trump family does this thing called Trump time, or you might call it action time. And so, Dave, what I want to encourage everybody to do here is President Trump is in the White House trying to do thousands of things to save our country, and he's doing a great job. But if you're watching today's show and you say, "I want to go into Trump time, I want to take action, what can I do to help save this country?" I have got 3 calls to action for every one of your listeners right now. And I know, Dave, you have some of the best listeners in the world, so I'm challenging everybody watching this show to take 3 action steps. 1, we've got to get Eric to the top of this New York Times bestsellers list. I mean, come on now. We can't let Kamala Harris even be close. Right now, Under Siege, if I'm correct, Eric, your book is, I believe, the #1 book in multiple categories, if not all categories, on Amazon right now. But again, folks, we got to be #1 on the New York Times bestsellers list. And so as this show comes out here, we'll call it late September, early October, Folks, you got to buy a Christmas gift for everybody in your family right now. So if you're watching today's show, you've got 6 kids, 7 kids, 1 kid, you have 12 Democrats in your family, buy a copy of the book for all your kids and all the Democrats in your family. You got to buy the book. Second thing I want to score here is since I've met Eric Trump through these Reawaken America Tour events, Eric has always been under siege. And if you're watching today's show and you're an entrepreneur, that's your normal. Every single day, there's a lawsuit, there's a legal issue, there's somebody going over budget, somebody going over time, there's an issue, there's a hiring problem, there's a branding issue, there's a website problem. That's what entrepreneurship is. It's solving problems. And what I love about Eric's book, Eric wrote this book at the age of 41. It's the same year, the same age that Donald J. Trump wrote his first book. So the book, The Art of the Deal, came out when Donald J. Trump was 41 years old. And Eric, you've been running, I believe, the Trump Organization for over a decade, and your book is filled with action steps that are super practical for guys like me that own businesses. And I find the book to be a real page turner. And I'd love to see Eric, if you could share a little bit about what your book teaches entrepreneurs out there, because I know there's somebody watching today's show who feels perpetually under siege, and your book really goes into great detail about your family's approach to business.
Well, Clay, that's exactly right. I mean, literally, it was us growing up on construction sites, stole the lessons that my father kind of, instilled in us, ingrained in us over the years, both, kind of moral lessons, no drinking, no drugs, no smoking. But I mean, every lesson in the boardroom, how he raised us, how he instilled kind of his ways in all of us. At the same time, how he led us and forced us to fight. And succeed. How he expected perfection from all of his kids, and frankly, how we grew up to be such a tight family that the siege could not break. They tried to break us, guys. They tried to destroy his marriage. They tried to destroy the relationship I have with our siblings. They tried to destroy our portfolio. And so, Clay, you said that, and you're one of the very few people who have actually read the book, ahead of time. It's a very, very kind of close-knit group, but I hope for every single person out there who's an entrepreneur who feels like the walls are coming crashing in all at the same time, they read this and say, oh my God, what they tried to do to you using the magnitude of the entire mainstream media and the entire government, including every DA and AG, wow. And if you can fight through it and you can win and you can survive and you can prosper and you can become bigger and stronger than ever before, so can I. So, I mean, the topic can be dark, right? The siege and the political corruption at the same time. I think the book is very much full of hope, aspiration, and life, and kind of self-teaching. And I wrote every word of this book. I'm incredibly proud of it. And as Clay said, David went to #1 on Amazon and in virtually every single category. And yes, Clay, we are going to become #1 on New York Times. I encourage everybody to go out, buy a copy for their liberal aunt. It's going to be hard for them to rebut anything in this book because it's just fact. But no, I'm very, very proud of what we've created.
No, I think what we have to do is, like we've always done with certain songs that come out, we always push them to #1 on iTunes. And now that you wrote a book, I think we all need to get together and push it to the top, because we know Kamala has her ridiculous book out there. And, but we need to show the deep state players that we are the majority, we're the base, we're the people. And I think when we push things to the top and we push songs or shows or movements or books to the top, I think it shows the entire country and the world that we are the majority. That's one way that we actually show how powerful we really are and how together we really are.
Dave, let me give you a little controversial,
Sure.
So the publisher of the book came to me and they said, I've never seen a book get so many large bulk pre-orders as Kamala's book. So, to me, it seems very clear that she's just going out and having all the Democratic political entities go out and right. It's probably no different than what happened in 2020, where they just rigged the hell out of the system. And, but it feels, and from what I'm being told, certainly it seems like that's hugely apparent. But they go, listen, we publish hundreds of books a year, and never have we seen such large, massive amounts of singular pre-orders come in and buy the book. So, I don't think to any conservative that should surprise you that they're willing to play the games. As always, we're not playing those games, and we're going to win because it's the best book, it's the best it's the best topic, and we've got the greatest movement in the history of politics and the greatest people out there who all lived the same story that you lived and I lived and Clay lived, where they tried to destroy everybody's lives and we ended up winning. And so I just thought it was kind of interesting that that's being said out there in the book universe.
Listen, if they can rig an election, they can rig book sales. It's that I don't think it's that difficult for them to do it, and that's what they always do. I remember when Andrew Cuomo came out with his book, and he got, I don't know, a couple $1 million, and someone figured it out, and it was like $10,000 a book because he didn't sell any books. And I think that this is what they do to pay these people off or whatever, and it's not really true book sales. So,
of course. I mean, remember his book was called, I think, Lessons in Leadership, right? I
yeah.
mean, he wrote a book, effectively patting himself on the back for, leading New York through COVID, even though, he was sending hospital patients to nursing homes and, misreporting death figures and, ended up getting spanked on the butt for doing so and frankly getting thrown out of being governor of a state for so many of those actions. But go figure. That's the state of the Democratic Party.
Since you run a multi-billion-dollar corporation, your father is now creating a tariff system, just like McKinley did and Andrew Jackson did, and he has external revenue coming in. And I think people are a little concerned, a little confused because what I find very interesting, that 1 in 4 low-income households spend 15% or more of their income on energy bills. This leaves many families having to decide between putting food on the table or paying their power bills. Since 2022, retail electricity costs have increased faster than the rate of inflation. This is why I use this magical little device and would never go a month without it. It is state-of-the-art energy-saving tool that minimizes dirty electricity and environmental impact. This gadget can be effortlessly connected to any regular electrical socket and employs advanced technology to oversee and fine-tune energy usage in your household. By scrutinizing and modifying the electric current, it can notably diminish the quantity of energy consumed by your home appliances and gadgets without impairing their effectiveness or operation, and help support lowering your energy bills. Do your wallet a favor and grab one while it's on sale now for up to 60% off only at don'twastepower.com before your next pricey power bill comes in. Plus, if you order now, you'll also get a 60-day 100% money-back guarantee and several other bonuses. Once again, that deal is only at don'twastepower.com or click the link in the description. They've never seen anything like this before. I mean, throughout everyone's lifetime, no one has seen tariffs the way he's doing tariffs right now, the deals that he's making. And how does this affect businesses? How is this going to benefit businesses? Because I think a lot of business owners, a lot of people are out there, they're like, okay, we have the Fed and we have the Internal Revenue Service, and now he's creating the tariff system, which is the External Revenue Service. How is this going to affect me? So how is it affecting your business?
Yeah, I think it's going to be an amazing thing for the U.S. And, this is an area that I understand better than probably anyone living on both sides of it, the political side and then like for the real world life side. Most people don't live on both sides. They live on kind of, one or the other. But if you think about it, Dave, tariffs are something that I'm sick and tired of hearing the word free trade, right? It's something that we've heard for the last 20 years. What was happening is you would have China that wouldn't import any of our products. They wouldn't go get a Ford truck. They wouldn't go get a General Motors car. They wouldn't take anything from the United States of America. And by the way, if somebody did want one of those things, they would charge them 100% tariff. But yet they were dumping all their crap on us every single day. Korea was one of the worst examples of this. You'd have washing machines. You'd have TVs. And the Korean government would literally subsidize their companies, Samsung, so many others, to sell products in the U.S. below the actual cost for Samsung and those other companies to produce those products. So say it costs them $900 to produce a washing machine. They'd be selling it over here for $850. The government would otherwise subsidize. It was called dumping. They would get the lion's share of business because they could, they could do a washing machine for $100 under the price of Whirlpool. So more people are going to buy that washing machine. As soon as they put the American company out of business, guess what happened? They would jack their prices up and they would take the entire market share. And congratulations, Americans just lost another 10,000, factory workers and entire industries. And this had been happening for decades and decades and decades, right? So for the first time, my father's putting reciprocal tariffs on it. You want to tariff us? We're going to tariff you. Congratulations. You want to tariff the largest economy in the world? And you see all these countries like Vietnam and all these countries, they're dropping the tariffs against the U.S. so our products can actually go overseas. We lost every factory. Dave, I gave thousands of speeches in factories across this country, right? Based on the fact that they were out of business, the lights were turned off, the parking lots had chain link fences around them. There were weeds growing up all over the place. We lost our entire manufacturing base based on the fact that we were getting totally screwed. And I hate to use that word on a podcast, but that's what was happening to us, right? At the same time, you go back and look at Biden for a second. Under Biden's term, you had years of 10% inflation, right? Over a 3-year period of time, you had over 30% inflation. So everything was more expensive. You know what wage growth was during that same period of time? Probably 6 or 7%, whereas price of everything went up. So your wages are barely climbing, and yet the cost of everything is going through the roof. The exact opposite is happening under my father. I mean, look at the inflation numbers that came out 2 days ago. I mean, inflation is virtually nothing. It's in the very, 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 very low single digits, like 2%, kind of where you want it to be. And so congratulations. And wage growth of all of a sudden is spiking again in this nation, meaning wages is outgrowing inflation. So, even if you did have to pay $2 extra for a product, you're actually having the purchasing power to do that for the first time, because you don't have 10% compounded inflation year over year as you did under Joe Biden. But beyond that, it's allowing manufacturing in this country to succeed. It's devastating to the Chinese economy, right? Who desperately wants to be the world superpower. And I think what he's doing is one of the greatest things that's ever happened to this nation.
He wants Powell to lower the rate, and he's done it a quarter point, but it feels like there was so much pressure on him to do that. I don't think he was going to do it on his own. Do you think that the Fed now is politicized?
Of course it is. There's no question about it. I mean, look how they were dropping rates under Biden in times that didn't warrant rate drops. Look at how they lied about the jobs number. I mean, there was over 800,000 jobs. 800. A good jobs report is 200,000 jobs, right? You had 800,000 jobs last year under Biden that were falsely reported. They had to go back and adjust those numbers. That's roughly 1/3 of all jobs created, right? That they lied about. Then the other part of the jobs equation was about 40% of all jobs, new jobs created under Biden, were federal, state, and local government jobs, right? And you know how difficult that is? Like, you create a federal job that the government's paying somebody. There's no tax flow through there because you have to pay more in order, right? You want private industry jobs, not federal jobs, right? Because it's not they're not accretive to your overall budget. And yet 40% of the jobs that Biden was creating were obviously governmental jobs that were being subsidized by taxpayers, even further messing up that deficit. And so between the 800,000 jobs that they lied about, roughly, 1/3 of the jobs created that year, plus the 40% that were governmental jobs, I mean, tell me that wasn't politicized. You think they just messed up by 800,000? Of course they didn't. They realized that had they reported the numbers correctly, it probably would have crashed the U.S. economy. And my father's flipped around that whole equation. I mean, no, I'm incredibly proud of what he's doing. There's no question they politicized it. There's no question Powell needs to drop rates. If you think about it, Apple and the largest American companies aren't beholden to rates because they've got unlimited sums of cash. They're sitting on hundreds of billions, if not trillions of dollars, of capital. Guess who needs low rates, interest rates? People who want to buy their first homes, people who need to refinance their homes, small businesses all across the country who are using lines of credit for their businesses every single day. Yes, the faster Powell could drop rates, the better it is for this country. And I think he saw it. And I think we're going to get another rate cut, probably 2 more rate cuts before the end of the year. That's kind of my prediction. That's probably, what's anticipated on the street right now. But rates have to come down. And I think also Powell realized that if he didn't drop rates, my father was going to fire him in May anyway. And so he may as well start the process sooner rather than later. I
think he's going to fire him anyhow. I think he's just going to get rid of him in the end.
Dave, that's an awfully safe bet.
Yeah.
I'm not going to bet against you on that one.
Yeah. So, Clay, you have a couple of businesses and you handle a lot of different people, starting businesses and ongoing businesses. What's your take?
Well, I would just say this. If you're watching today's show, and you're somebody who says, what can I do? to grow a business. Eric and I, we've teamed up. We're doing business conferences together. If you go to thrivetimeshow.com, you can attend one of those workshops. And the next one will be in Anaheim, California, December 4th and 5th. And let's say that Powell lowers rates or Powell doesn't lower rates. I think now is the best time to start and grow a successful business. And you say, why is now the best time? Because every day that we have is a gift from God, and what we do with it is a gift to God. And I don't know how many days we're going to have on this planet, but we need to all operate in Trump time, as Dr. Navarro calls it. We all need to seize the day, carpe diem. We all need to take action because, when Erica, he just spoke at our business workshop, our thrivetimeshow.com business workshop here in Tulsa. And Eric was talking about how he organizes his day, his approach to branding, his approach to marketing, his approach to sales, to leadership, and we all can get better. So let's just say that we can't lower rates or we can lower rates. Now has never been a better time to start and grow a successful company. And again, a lot of people don't recognize or don't remember this, but when President Trump wrote about the art of the deal, a lot of the case studies and or examples in the art of the deal involved President Trump buying a dilapidated hotel and renovating it, revitalizing it, rejuvenating it, breathing life into it, and making it worth something. It was finding land that had potential value, but that potential hadn't been seized. President Trump redefined the entire skyline of New York during an economy that was not great. Mm-hmm. And Eric, I think maybe I'm correct, but you've been running the Trump Organization for about 10 years or so, and you've renovated, that I know of. I mean, you've completely turned around Turnberry, made it a very successful, beautiful golf course out there in Scotland. You've turned that around. You've turned around Trump Doral. I mean, I could go on and on listing the properties, but Eric, you see a property as it could be, you buy it as it is, and you turn it around. And I think that's what it's all about.
Eric, your family, and I think people were shocked about this when President Trump mentioned cryptocurrency, Bitcoin. You started to move into cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, and people are like, okay, they never mentioned this before. All of a sudden, now everyone is on board with crypto. What changed?
When I got a letter from Capital One effectively telling me they're canceling 300 accounts for no reason whatsoever, only because my father wore a hat that said "Make America Great Again" on it. That was red. That's what changed. I realized how fragile our financial institution was, how broken our financial institution was. It no longer worked for people. And the same people that, were coming after us were also going after the people in the crypto space. And these are the people who just wanted to modernize finance. I mean, Dave, let me ask just a couple of basic questions. Like, why if I don't get a wire in by 5 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, why can't I get it until the following Monday? Right? I mean, yeah. It's preposterous in the financial world. First of all, the bank is taking interest on that money all of those days and not paying you, so they're making money off of your money, right? And second of all, it's just archaic, right? Whereas with crypto, on Saturday night while having a glass of wine with your wife or your husband or whoever the hell it is, you can send money instantaneously for a small fraction of the fee that goes to a traditional, so, vis-a-vis Bitcoin, vis-a-vis stablecoin, vis-a-vis Ethereum, why is it that, you want to go out and you want to get financing on a home, and the bank that you've done business with for 25 years spends, 90 to 120 days going through a know your customer? It doesn't make any sense. There's nothing that the crypto world can't do better, faster, cheaper, and more transparently, and a lot of other things than the modern financial system. So, when I started getting debanked, I fell into cryptocurrency. There is no question it's the future of modern day finance. So much so that, I started two companies, American Bitcoin, which is now listed on the NASDAQ. It trades on the NASDAQ. I think it's going to be the greatest, Bitcoin company, in the nation, one of the greatest Bitcoin companies in the world. I could not be more proud of it. We're mining Bitcoin right now for roughly 50 cents on the dollar. To what Bitcoin right now is about $115,000, and we're mining it for roughly 50% on the dollar of that. It's an unbelievable company, and then we have World Liberty Financial, which is the fastest growing stablecoin on earth right now, USD1, and so I am embracing crypto with my entire heart. 50% of my day is now spent on crypto. I can't tell you. I truly believe that we are on the 1 yard line of cryptocurrency as it starts getting embraced by everyone. The big banks, the biggest Fortune 500 companies, the biggest families around the world. Everybody wants cryptocurrency. Everybody wants Bitcoin. Everybody is buying Bitcoin. The biggest companies are treasuring Bitcoin. It's on the balance sheet of the largest families, in the world. And people are just starting to open their eyes right now. Cryptocurrency is growing faster than the internet grew in the 90s. And I can tell you when we look back in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, the way our financial system runs is going to be 100% different than it is today. So I believe in it. I love it. People are starting to see it. I've been telling people to buy it for the last several years. The people who who've made a lot of money, based on it, and I believe it with every ounce of my soul.
Do you think crypto, Bitcoin, do you think this eventually in the future, sometime in the future, it would replace the currency that we have today?
No, I think it does two things. I think crypto, think of Bitcoin as really digital gold. Mm-hmm. How do you move gold? How do you sell gold? What do? You take a nugget and you melt it down. Okay, what happens if you want to take $100,000 of gold? Well, you'll probably get arrested at the airport for smuggling, right? And by the way, what do? Bring it into a pawn shop and sell it for 70 cents on the dollar? It's always been an amazing store of value for the longest time, but it's not the best store of value. Bitcoin is. Bitcoin can be sold 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's a product that everybody wants. It's a product that has finite demand. So there's only 21 million Bitcoin. Dave, if gold ever got to $10,000 an ounce, I'd break down your studio. I'd break down the concrete walls that surround wherever you are right now, and I'd probably find gold in there. You're always going to, as price goes up, you're always going to, increase the supply of an item. It might cost more to mine, but you can otherwise go out and you can find more, right? I mean, if Bitcoin ever went to $40,000 an ounce, Elon would probably find it on Mars and bring it back to the Bitcoin. There is 21 million of them. It is finite. There will never be 21 million and one. And so Bitcoin is really digital gold, right? And then you really have stable coins. So USD1, our stable coin, is backed 1-to-1 on the US dollar. What happens is no one trusts governments around the world. They had a stable coin in Europe where only 0.5% of Europeans would buy a euro-denominated stable coin. Guess what everybody wants? Whether you're in Asia, whether you're in South America, whether you're in Africa, whether you're in Europe, they all want the US dollar. And so, if you live in Kenya, you can use a little thing called a phone. You can have your, and you can take your salary, which is otherwise being inflated at 10,000% a year because of, not having good currencies, not having stable governments, fraud, abuse. And you can instantly buy, the US dollar. Again, a stable coin, which is digital dollar that's backed exactly 1-to-1 with treasuries, with short-term treasuries. And so for the first time, you're going to attract literally, hundreds of billions, if not trillions of dollars a year into the US dollar, into the dollar ecosystem. There is nothing that's going to be better for the US dollar than cryptocurrency, especially stable coins, which are all predicated on the dollar because no one trusts any of the Asian currencies. No one trusts the euro. No one trusts any of the South American currencies. Everybody in the world wants the US dollar. And so by having stable coins, by having cryptocurrency, it gives them stability, it gives them financial freedom, it gives them the rule of law of the United States of America. It doesn't subject them to, fraudulent governments, fraudulent banks. You can transact it immediately, 24 hours a day. It's not like gold where it weighs a ton, where you have to melt it down, where you can't find secondary markets. Cryptocurrency is the way of the future, and I actually think it does a tremendous amount to enhance the U.S. dollar, not deplete it in any way.
With the blockchain, it seems to me that we really don't need the banking system the way it is today, because with the blockchain and we're kind of bypassing the entire SWIFT system. We're bypassing the entire banking computer system. Their data centers are just gigantic in the amount of energy.
You just made me smile.
Yeah.
You made me smile by saying that, because that's exactly right. I did this when I got debanked by everyone, and I'm talking about everyone. I'm talking about Bank of America. I'm talking about JP Morgan Chase. I'm talking about Capital One. I'm talking about everyone, the biggest banks, because they didn't like who we were, because we had a certain political idea. And now all of them are coming back, Dave, and by the way, kissing my ass, right? It's really ironic how that works. They all want to have, Trump Organization's accounts and my personal accounts and everything else. But I started, there is nothing that's done that can't be done faster, more transparently, right? Without the interface. Let me ask you a question. Why is somebody at one of the banks making the decision as to whether or not Dave can get a loan on his house or not? Like, why does JP Morgan have 70-story towers in every major city in the country filled with tens of thousands of people? when all of those jobs are redundant and can be done on blockchain quicker, faster, more transparently, more efficiently, right? Somebody goes and fills out a loan application. They have zero leverage, zero purchasing power, and they have to eat every fee, every expense, right? Ridiculous interest rates. The banks control the purse. And by the way, Dave, guys like me were always the guys who had the advantage because we obviously move a lot of capital. And so I can call up the heads of these banks and say, listen, you're going to reduce my interest rate by 1%. You're going to do this. You're going to help me out. You're going to waive these fees. The average retail consumer can't. Crypto gives people financial freedom, right? And so when you say, what's the purpose of the banks? I say, amen, right? People can get better service 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Why are you reliant on the teller at Bank of America, who works from 9 to 5 with a 2-hour lunch break somewhere in the middle of the day if you need to go in there and you want to send a wire, right? And by the way, God forbid you're trying to send a wire to the other side of Earth for something. You want to buy a product in Europe or South America. What do? You go to your local branch, and then you find a branch down there, and they take currency conversion fees, right? FX fees, and then everybody has their fingers in the candy jar, and it gets there 3 days later, but you don't know if the bank's legit or not. And you don't know if the person is going to actually go in to receive their money. When you can pick up your phone and you can send a wallet address and you can instantly send money at virtually no fees, in a matter of milliseconds across the earth without having anybody else touch it, have anybody else's fingers in it, at 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday morning, why do these banks even exist? Why does a bank take 90 or 120 days to give you a mortgage utilizing money that you have in your bank accounts as collateral? Why is it that, a bank in the United States is only expected to keep 10%? If you put $1 million into a bank in the U.S., it only has to keep $100,000, right? It only has to keep 10% of. So they go out there and they gamble with your money. Yeah. That doesn't feel right to me. I mean, which is safer, that or a cryptocurrency that's backed 1-to-1 against the U.S. dollar, or something like Bitcoin? Bitcoin is the greatest modern asset of our time, which has been growing at 70% year over year for the last 10 years. I mean, and I truly believe in my heart of heart, that's why I created American Bitcoin, will continue to do so. I have said it many times, but I truly believe that Bitcoin is going to be over $1 million in a matter of years. And so I think the modern financial system is broken. I think it's punitive. I think it's been a disgrace to virtually everybody who's listening to the show, who all got debanked, who all got deplatformed because they made a spring that went in a fishing reel that was sold at Bass Pro Shops that sold duck hunting ammo, and therefore they were tossed aside like they were dogs. No, my greatest hope in the world is that crypto takes over the entire financial industry and puts half of those banks that were so discriminatory out of business.
I agree with that 100%. Clay, thoughts?
Well, the thoughts I have is, when I was stage side with Eric, every once in a while I'd look to my left and I would say, wow, there's General Flynn. Look to my right, there's Eric. Look over here, see Kash Patel. And I'm thinking, how did we get here? What are some things we have in common? Well, virtually everybody who was stage side had been debanked. And so General Flynn was debanked. Eric Trump was debanked. I have been debanked. We have had, it's almost impossible if I wanted to reimburse a speaker for travel, it's almost impossible to send certain people money because they had been debanked. And so the problem of debanking is unbelievably real. And if you're watching today's show and you haven't been debanked before, that is a weird feeling. It's a weird feeling when you've banked at an institution for years and years and years, and they say, hey, your credit score is great. You've been here for years, but your money is no longer welcome here. What do you do? I mean, where do you go from there? So I think Eric has a very valid point. And just a couple other notes I want to make here for you, for anybody out there, Dave, who's watching today's show. If anybody goes to Amazon.com right now and you buy a copy of Under Siege, so you want to go to Amazon.com, buy a copy of Under Siege. If you buy a copy of it, what we're doing from now until October 14th, so if it's from now until October 14th, anybody who buys a copy of Eric's book, Under Siege. If you'll text me, I asked Eric, I said, Eric, can I give out your cell phone number? He said, absolutely not. So I'm giving out my cell phone number. If you text proof of purchase to my cell phone number on my clipboard of fun here, 918-851-0102. So if you just text proof of purchase to my cell phone number, 918-851-0102, you are entered into a drawing for a chance to win a dinner at Mar-a-Lago with Eric Trump and I. So Eric Trump and I will be meeting you at Mar-a-Lago. We'll have dinner with you. Also, you win, and again, I'm going to cover the airfare and the hotel. Also, you're going to win a backstage pass to the upcoming Thrive Time Show Business Conference, December 4th and 5th in Anaheim, California. So what do? You buy a copy of the book Under Siege. You text proof of purchase to my phone number, 918-851-0102. Text proof of purchase. And because it's a drawing, if you're saying, I don't have the money to buy a book, but I still want to enter into the drawing, you can just text the number 918-851-0102. So if you want to be entered into the drawing and you're in a tight spot financially, you can just text that number right there to be entered in as well. But we'd really appreciate a purchase of the book. And then you have a chance to win a dinner with Eric Trump and myself at Mar-a-Lago. You have a chance to win a life-changing a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to go backstage to one of the upcoming business conferences, December 4th and 5th in Anaheim. And then finally, Eric, one thing that Eric is doing, and I thought it was awesome when I heard that you were doing this, Eric, is Eric is donating a portion of the proceeds to support the Turning Point Foundation. So every time you buy a copy of Under Siege, Eric, you're also teaming up with Charlie Kirk's group. And Eric, maybe you could just share a little bit about that, because I think when we buy the book, you have a wonderful opportunity to find a book that is life-changing, mind-blowing. It's a great book. You're supporting Charlie Kirk, and you have a chance to go to Mar-a-Lago, which, by the way, is probably the most exclusive property on the planet. So, Eric, a lot of information to break down, but I'd love to get your reaction to that cornucopia of whatnot.
So let me go to Mar-a-Lago. First of all, I'm going to make sure everybody has the greatest night ever. We will have the greatest time. You'll see the greatest club in the country. Dave's seen it before. You will love it. I will make sure we have the greatest night of your lives. So we'll have a great time. Listen, in terms of Turning Point, it's the exact point of Under Siege, right? I mean, they want to put us under siege. They didn't want me on that stage. Dave, they don't want you on that stage. Clay, they don't want you on that stage. They certainly didn't want Charlie Kirk on that stage. I mean, I had done thousands of events like that where I was standing on top of a tractor with a bullhorn. I had done, countless events with Charlie. They want us to be Joe Biden. They want us to be locked in a freaking basement. And guys, Dave, that wouldn't have worked. If we went back to 2016, if we weren't out there running our mouths, if we weren't out there in every single swing state doing 5, 6, 7, 10 events a day, we weren't going to beat Hillary Clinton. No. I mean, we're at a 5-to-1 disadvantage fundraising-wise, and the only way we were able to win is because we were on that stage. And so when you have these lunatic kids, effectively voting from rooftops, calling us fascists while they shoot sniper rifles at us, their intended purpose is to keep us in, and we can never allow that to happen. We will not be silenced. We will not be quiet. We will continue to take that stage. We understand that it might come at great peril, as we just saw from my father and from Charlie, but we will not back down under any circumstances. So, this book came out 3 days. Under Siege came out 3 days before Charlie Kirk's assassination. And I know I want to give the proceeds. I was going to give it to St. Jude, which is a big part of my life, St. Jude Children's Hospital. I've raised over $50 million for them. And honestly, Charlie's death was so on point to the whole mantra of what they've tried to do to us as a family, as a movement, that I want to make sure that the movement never dies. I want to make sure that those voices are never, ever, ever silenced again. And so I'm gonna write a really nice check at the end of this thing with proceeds from the book. In honor of Charlie, in honor of Erica, and just in honor of Turning Point, which embodies absolutely everything that I've spent the last decade and more of my life fighting for, which is to make America great again.
Eric, if people wanted to buy your book and they didn't want to buy it from Amazon, is there another place they can go to purchase it?
EricTrump.com. Go to EricTrump.com, but go to if you are on Amazon, go buy it. Go buy a couple copies. We have to win New York Times #1. I think we will. And I want to beat Kamala, who, as I said before, from everything that's being told to me, is just using big donors to go buy copious amounts of her book. It's hard to believe anybody would buy her book. I mean, she was in a race for 107 days. She didn't do anything. She was the least charismatic candidate in I think modern political history. So I can't imagine her books are flying off the shelves. But when you have big donors going in there, and apparently, from what I'm being told, buying tens of thousands of copy, the MAGA army has to come out, and and I'd appreciate it. And I can't wait to bring one of you guys to Mar-a-Lago, or a couple of you guys to Mar-a-Lago. We will have the greatest time. We will have the greatest night. So make sure to send Clay Clark that number, and he will ultimately do the drawing, and we will have a phenomenal night.
Great. I'll put all
Eric,
the
I want to interject one thing. I'm so sorry. I had to interject this, Eric. I never disagree with you on podcasts, but one thing is Kamala Harris. I mean, she's got to be an incredible author. I mean, she's a great orator. She's got to be just a hell of an author. I mean, I just imagine that her book will unburden everybody from what has been. I think, Eric, people are buying it because she's such an incredible author. I think that's
great lessons, Clay. I mean, if you want to learn about business, speak to Kamala. I mean, price gauging. Remember price gauging. She couldn't even say the word gouging. She used the word price gauging. So if you want a great business read, definitely buy Kamala's book.
I mean, don't
worry about the Trump book if you want great business insight. Buy Kamala's book. A person who literally can't say the word gouging and does not know the concept of price gouging.
And the last time I saw her, it looked like she was drunk or something at her book signing, whatever she was at.
Very likely.
Yeah, most likely.
Highly likely.
Unbelievable.
By the way, after that disastrous run, I'd be drunk too.
Yeah, I agree. I want to thank both of you for coming on the X22 Report Spotlight. I'm going to put all the links at the bottom of the video to make it easier for people to go over and purchase the book. Once again, thank you very much for being on the Spotlight. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Great to be back, Dave.
Thank you,
care, my friend.
Thank you, Dave.